Hello, everyone. We got Pints and Politics here. Drew, Mike, and we got John Nagel. He's running for state house, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it said on the sign.
Yeah, I'm glad you read my sign.
I can read.
Yeah.
We've got
Well,
these,
welcome. Thank you for
these
coming
great
on.
cards. Look at that. It's got the American flag on it with his information. I think that's great.
yeah.
I've never seen one like that. That's an awesome idea as a candidate. So
Well,
That is actually really good. I like the lapel pen. That's pretty cool.
it's great to be here with Pints and Politics.
Yeah. Where are we today, Mike?
Oh, I'm sorry. You know how I get forgetful.
Yeah.
Minneapolis, Republican Hall office. So
Treehouse.
in Minneapolis here, thank you for opening your doors to us, having a place to do the podcast. We're talking to candidates here who are running for House races in the state of Minnesota. And we're trying to bring that urban metro together because we need to, as Republicans, conservatives, this is not, watch your own bob or you're only in your own race. We need to work together. And that's the only way we're going to take this state back. And it's worth fighting for. It's up to us to do it. So I'll get off my soapbox because really we want to learn about John.
So what does GOP mean?
Grand old party.
That's right. We belong to the grand old party. People look at Republicans and they think of us as grumpy old men. And that's just not the case. If you look at the Republican Party, we're talking about Lincoln. We're talking about Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was one of the greatest people for any kind of environmental issues.
Very conservative.
Very conservative. And
conservatives.
here's the thing about Teddy is that he didn't owe his soul to anybody. He had enough money that he didn't have to take money from anybody. He was a police commissioner. That's why I like him, being a retired state trooper. He took on all of the problems that New York had, and he was a great, police commissioner. So one of the reasons why I'm running is about a year ago, if somebody would have said that I'd be sitting here next to these two, wonderful, great guys. Again, it's Pints and Politics. You're going to hear more politics, but I don't see any pints on the table. So it's great that we're able to talk to people and explain all of the really bad things that are going on in Minnesota. And that's why I'm here. A year ago, I was asked to do a caucus. I did the caucus, and after the caucus, somebody said, "Would you run?" And I said, "No, I don't want to run. I'm in a very blue area. There hasn't been a Republican in this area for, I think, about 15 years. And I said, there's just no support." Well, then I started looking at what was going on at the legislature. And when I saw all the terrible things, and they're actually evil, terrible things that are going on with the Democratic trifecta, that I just couldn't sit it out anymore. I asked my family, do you think I should run? My wife looked at me and said, "Well, you've been a trooper for 30 years. She goes, "I think I can put up with you running for a few months." My daughter wasn't too sure. I mean, she was concerned because, let's face it, Republicans in Minnesota, I mean, if you put that sign up in your yard, chances are someone's going to steal the sign or you're going to get hate mail or whatever. I guess on X, the Iranians are already following me, so I don't know what that means. But so there is this real big apprehension. And I've talked to other people that were asked to run, and they won't run because there is a certain amount of fear in somebody coming after you. I
think that's mostly a metro thing.
It could be.
It could be.
You get that?
I think there's a certain aspect of it. And I don't want to take away time from you, but I think that's a really good point that you brought up. Because signs, right? Signs is one of those things that goes out in everybody's yards or some people's yards. And I was talking to somebody recently, lives in St. Cloud, said, "I don't want to put up a sign." And talking to people in the metro, and I don't want to put up a sign because of fear. Okay, so we as a country spend trillions of dollars spreading democracy, right, across the globe. But in our own country, there's a fear of putting up a political sign. I mean, there's a problem here. You should be able to express your political views without fear of retribution. And if that's taking place in this country, in this city, then we have some issues here. I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. Used to be a mantra in this country. And here we're fearful of putting up a sign in our yard because of violence, property damage. we have a problem here.
Well, here's the other thing too. When the Democratic Party is a party of defund the police, people are sitting back going, the police aren't even around anymore to come help me. What am I supposed to do? But anyway, my son was the one that looked at me and he says, Dad, he said, you've been retired for a few years now from patrol. He said, things are pretty screwed up. Maybe you should step up to the plate again. And that old saying about, evil triumphs when good people do nothing. I think the people of Minnesota, we've done nothing for too long and evil has taken over, and it's time to go. When I got the GOP endorsement that morning, I looked at everybody and I said, I really wish I would have gotten this endorsement on St. Patrick's Day. I'm a little bit Irish. And they go, well, why would you want the endorsement on St. Patrick's Day? And I said, very simply, St. Patrick went to Ireland and he drove the snakes out of Ireland. I would like to join you and drive the snakes out of the legislature because you are up to your neck in vipers. People that are trying to turn Minnesota into a transgender state. Well, the whole world is realizing that is not a good thing. Most of these kids outgrow it. Most of these kids, if you're 21 years old and you want to go out and have plastic surgery, fine, go for it. But when you're a parent and you're looking at an 8-year-old little kid and you decide what they're supposed to be, there's something wrong with that parent. And I sit back and go, well, is it because you didn't get the little boy you wanted? Is it because you didn't get the little girl you wanted? And now you're trying to mold this child into what you want? And we have some people at the legislature, and I believe they're drag queens. Is that what they're called?
We have one trans person.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me I saw an advertisement saying that they were going to a drag queen show and they were part of it.
There has been representatives I know that were promoting the what was it? Nuns for
Oh no.
what was it called again?
No,
Shoot,
what?
I'm drawing a blank.
The trans nuns that they had at the Dodgers game.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and then you saw what happened at the Olympics with
Yep.
the Last Supper, which you know what? People throw this word around all the time. I'm offended. Well, as a Christian, as a Catholic, I am very offended at that. And all I see is a group of people trying to shove religion out of Minnesota. In this last session, there was some literature or some wording taken out. Basically, churches were no longer able to look at somebody and say, you're not a right fit, because there was a separation of church and state.
Religious exemptions.
Yes, it was the religious exemptions. So when do you get a Jewish person, a Muslim person, a Christian person, and Hindu as a group, a coalition? They go in, they sit down in front of the legislature, and they go, "You must have made a mistake because we would like that put back in there." Those Democratic legislators looked at them and said, "No, that wasn't a mistake. They did it intentionally." And they looked at the same group. How this even fits, I have no idea. But they looked at this group and said, you remind us of a bunch of slave owners. How does a group of religious people coming in, making a comment, to a group of religious people that you're a bunch of slave owners? It's because they have nothing to fall back on. It's their name calling. Typical Democrat ploy. If the facts don't align with what you want, then we're just going to make something up or go off on a tangent. So after watching all of this stuff in the legislature, and I could go on and on and on. They're trying to take away your religious freedom, and I think they've kind of. We're really lucky that we have folks like this that were willing to stand up to them, and they were able to bring it to light where there was enough pressure put on them that a lot of these things didn't actually come to fruition, which is interesting because they could have if they wanted to.
And I think that's a good point. Go on, and I'll interject after.
Okay, so parental rights. Here's the other thing too. When you look at the whole transgender issue, and let me be very clear, one of my biggest supporters, he and I were talking, and he's gay, and he looked at me and he said, transgenderism is a cult. He said, they are mutilating children. So people sometimes are a little bit touchy about, transgender. It has nothing to do with the gay rights movement at all. And there are groups of gay people that are very much against this because they understand that it's wrong. You don't mutilate children. I think it was Bill Maher made the really great statement. Hey, I'm really glad that when I was a little boy and wanted to be a pirate, my parents didn't knock out an eye and take off a leg so I could have a patch and a wooden leg. And that's what we're saying. So, these kids probably are going to grow out of it. I grew up with a lot of girls that just love to play football, and they turned out to be the best moms in the world because they go out and they play football with their kids. So people need to be very clear that the gay rights movement is totally different than transgenderism, and most gay people, very kind and loving, and are able to see that this is a bad thing for children. So, parental rights in St. Louis Park, the area that I'm running in, my opponent last time ran unopposed. Now, I don't think that's very American. I mean, I think that.
Can you mention his name?
No, I don't want to mention his name. No, his name is Larry Kraft. Okay. Larry's a nice guy. I met him. Really quick story. During Memorial Weekend, I went to the Legion and handing out my little flags and cards and talking to people, telling them I was running. And he came in. Now, he didn't know me. I knew him. And he came and he sat down. And I looked at my wife and I said, "Do you think I should go over and say hi?"
You should, yeah.
And she goes, "Well, yeah, you probably should." So I got up and I walked over and I said, "Hey, Larry, I'm John Nagel." Now I'm pretty sure he thought that I was one of his, just a constituent, which in reality I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Hi, Larry." I said, "I'm your competition. You don't have to run alone this time." And then he was very gracious. He said, "Well, you and I should have coffee together." And I said, I'd love to have coffee with you, but I am too busy knocking on doors and wearing out shoes trying to beat you. So I can't, have coffee with you." And again, Larry is a very nice guy, but he's a one issue guy. It's all about climate change.
Yes.
And I'm about climate change. I mean, I think that there are things that we can do. I mean, I grew up in Minnesota. Our eagles were dying. We got rid of DDT. Our lakes and rivers were polluted. Lake Superior, you couldn't drink water out of Lake Superior because of the taconite tailings that were being pumped in there. Minnesota has actually been a leader in keeping our state very clean. Even our power companies, they were given a goal to reduce, carbon 20 years ago. They not only met that, but they exceeded it. So Minnesota's done a great job, and I think with our universities and our students and the people that we have, instead of throwing money at it like the Democrats like to do, we could create some really great environmental policies. We could use our colleges. We could develop the technology. The way we're going right now is that we're spending a ton of money and we're not actually helping the environment at all. We're creating more problems, whether it's wind turbines that you can't recycle, solar panels that are very difficult to recycle, not to mention where this stuff comes from. And why are we putting solar panels on farmland? I was just up in Monticello, and they're building, solar panel farms. And you have to have a certain amount of acreage for that solar farm to actually produce enough energy to make it worthwhile. Those solar panels also heat up the ground underneath it. And when you start heating up the ground underneath it, now you're actually creating a warmer environment. And any plants that would have been growing out there would have been taking carbon monoxide out of the soil. It takes it out of the air and actually deposits it into the soil where it dissipates. So everything that we're doing in Minnesota, as far as wind and solar and everything that they're pushing, really isn't helping. It's incredibly expensive, and we need to be, thinking about smarter ways of spending taxpayers' dollars and finding out, are we actually going to make a difference in how we're doing this? So anyway, getting back to Larry, we had a group of moms, and they did not like the fact that there were books in our schools which were basically age inappropriate. I related to, if you were growing up in the 50s or 60s, those were the magazines at the drugstore that they would put brown wrappers around and put up on the shelf so kids couldn't see them or it wouldn't offend anybody. So anyway, this group of moms, they go to the city council and they say, "Hey, because of religious beliefs, we don't really want this being shown to our children." One of the city council members said, "Well, we're here, you need to get used to it, we're not going to change this." Well, these group of moms who are actually Muslim moms decided that they're going to bring a lawsuit. Well, of course, the school shut down and said, "Okay, fine, we'll give you that." Well, the city of St. Louis Park, the teachers unions, and the school board all immediately ran to the Democrats and said, "Oh, we can't let them opt out. We got to pass a law that says, you can't opt out because it could be prejudicial if you opted out."
Yeah,
And I believe the legislature brought that up.
It's amazing. I have to say you're very well versed in a lot of the topics that are very, not just in the metro, but all over the state. You know,
Yeah, it's
very much
everywhere.
on people's main topics. So I think it's great. You talked about the environmental thing, and we hear it a lot out in greater Minnesota where, farmers are taking advantage and there's soil erosion and they're just pumping chemicals onto the ground and all this stuff. I don't know a farmer out there who wastes chemicals on their fields. They don't.
It's too
They don't.
expensive.
It's too expensive. They don't want to see their topsoil run away. I mean, they take every precaution that they can to make sure that doesn't happen. So we're focusing on our climate, on our environment here, but at the same time, we are a small part of this. And when China is opening up a new coal-fired plant every 10 days to 2 weeks, I believe, or starting another one,
That sounds right.
we can shut down our economy here in Minnesota, and it will have zero impact on the global climate issues.
Exactly. Yeah.
So why would we kill our businesses? Right now in the state of Minnesota, Monticello, the coal-fired plants, shutting them down, the two burners. But at the same time now we're going to end up bringing electricity in from another state, from a coal-fired plant, because at least it's not in Minnesota.
Nobody wants to talk about this, and I don't know why. We've had, nuclear power plants on submarines now since the 1960s. I believe it was the Nautilus, which was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reason why you can't take a coal or gas-powered power plant and you can actually put in a very small reactor that would do the same thing. And with today's technology, those reactors are very small, and they are starting to learn how to take the used rods and actually put them back in, and they're consumed by the power, the nuclear plant itself. So if you truly want to talk about clean power, nuclear is the way to go. And again, for some reason, people are afraid to even bring that term up. But let's face it, we've got nuclear in all of our military areas, and we haven't had an incident. When you look at all of these other areas that have had problems, you talk about Chernobyl or whatever, we have American engineers and we have American standards, and we do things the way we're supposed to do things. Although with DEI, that might be changing. We may not have kids. It's been brought up before too. That's the other thing. So the legislature has now tried to say parents have no right in the school. We don't care, what your religious convictions are. We're going to put whatever kind of a picture, of two people making love that we want to, regardless if it's, age inappropriate or not, or lifestyle appropriate. Those things should be in the parents' hands. The other thing with the trans issue, they're saying that if a young person in school says, yeah, maybe I want to be a boy, maybe I want to be a girl, they're now able to hide that from the parents. If a parent says, I am not going to go have my child have plastic surgery, the school can actually step in and they will take the child from you so that can actually happen. So what if you're in outstate, you're outside of Minnesota, you come in and you grab a kid and you kidnap them and say, oh, the parents won't let this kid, have their procedures done, and there's not going to be anything that Minnesota law enforcement is going to be able to do because the law says you can take that child away from the parents. Now, how is that right?
So no, I totally agree with you, and this is one thing that I think is actually a positive of Comrade Walls running for VP, because it's shining that spotlight on the craziness that's happened in this state. Thank you for bringing that up. The refugee state that they talked about for transgender surgeries. It's horrible. You can bring kids from another state without their parents' consent, mutilate them for whatever reason.
How much say does the kid have in this, by the way? Like,
what's a 9-year-old?
Let's say the 9-year-old says that, like, a 9-year-old boy says they want to be a girl. Get there and say, I don't want to go through with this. They're already there. What's to stop whoever bringing them in saying like, no, you're kidding. They actually want the procedure.
Well, and the parent's responsibility in this. Bill Maher's quote, I think, and there are times that I just absolutely do not like Bill Maher and what he has to say, but there are times he is common sense. And that quote about, if we all had our dream, we would be pirates and firemen or something to that effect. So we as parents are responsible to make sure our kids don't make bad decisions. Go back to the Andy Griffith show, and there was a great quote in there too, where you got to stop kids from grabbing onto that first flashy thing that comes along, because once they're hooked, that it's a problem. Basically, we are supposed to be the voice of reason. We know that children do not develop mentally until into their 20s.
I think Kamala Harris just said they were all crazy. Not
She
sure.
did.
Yeah.
Did she say crazy or did she say stupid?
I was trying to be polite.
Oh yeah, no, she called them stupid. I'm not going to mince words.
Okay.
So we protect them from, we say they can't smoke
Yeah,
until a certain age. They can't drink until a certain age. They can't do any of these other things. But they can have surgery, which will alter their life forever, or the puberty blockers.
Which has been outlawed in Europe.
Exactly. Europe is taking a huge stance now and saying, we went too far with this. And here in the United States, we're going, we haven't gone far enough.
yeah. Well, the
Learn
thing
from
about
the mistakes.
transgender is that when you transition, you become a permanent patient because you're always having symptoms that need to be treated by big pharma and by hospitals. So big healthcare and big pharma.
Going back to the actual medical procedures, do you know where those medical procedures were actually developed?
Wasn't it Planned Parenthood?
No, wasn't it a psych?
Mengele?
Mengele.
Really?
Going back to the Nazis
great.
and the concentration
So,
camps.
so you're telling me that the Democrats are pro-Nazi policy? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, they're obviously passing laws that allow that kind of surgery to happen.
The
Yeah.
thing is, the Nazis, they were socialists, National Socialist Party of Germany. That's what their name was. And they engaged in socialist policies. They engaged in eugenics. They took privatization away to make the trains run on time. And on time means whatever the overseer said was acceptable, which means if they were late and the overseer was acceptable with it, it was on time.
Well, the back then for World War II, everybody says, well, how did that happen? Well, it happened in little tiny increments. It happened when they decided, should we allow people to have guns? We're going to pick on a certain group of people. And then the next thing you know is that if your political opponent, it looks like they're going to win, they either get jailed or they get farmed off and you never see them again. And you take a look at that and you start going, wow, the Democrats are using their playbook.
Absolutely. Somebody said earlier today that history doesn't repeat itself, but
Yes,
it
it
sure
does.
rhymes.
Yeah,
It sure rhymes. Mark Twain quote, but I love it. We've seen this happen in societies before. We are heading down the same road. And it's like it's time for the adults to stand up and say, enough. Not just pump the brakes, but we need to step back a long ways because we are on a dangerous course. And I think it's great that you're bringing these things up. Some of these issues, a lot of candidates, a lot of people don't want to talk about. They believe they're taboo or we shouldn't discuss them or
They
maybe
can't
we
win on
don't
the
know
messaging.
enough.
Well, I'm hoping that anybody that's listening to this realizes that, don't be afraid. You have friends. There are people that think the same way you do. Minnesota is worth saving. America is worth saving. A lot of people are running off to Florida, Arizona, or whatever. That's fine if you can do that. Problem is that when you're in Arizona or you're in Florida and all of a sudden DeSantis isn't your governor anymore and you get a guy like, Walz, then where are you going to move to then? This is kind of your last stand. And again, I'm a Minnesota kid. I grew up here. I'm not a transplant. I didn't come from New York or somewhere else. I was born here, bought the house that my grandpa built in St. Louis Park. I was actually raised there. My dad bought it. And then I bought it from my dad, and I've raised my kids there. I've got two kids. They're in their 30s. So I remember when, here we are in Minneapolis. Growing up as a kid, we loved coming to Minneapolis. You come down at Christmas time, you go to Dayton's, there was Orchestra Hall. You had the Guthrie Theater, which was actually on the west side, and they moved it in down by the river. And this was a fun place to go to. Well, now I've talked to police officers that don't even want to come into Minneapolis. You talk about defund the police. The Walz administration has been anti-police since the day they got in there. You have Keith Ellison, who is anti-police. He actually goes out and teaches people how to prosecute police officers. You have a Hennepin County attorney who wants to just, prosecute police officers, whether they're guilty or not, which is what happened with Trooper Ryan Londrigan. Even though she had all sorts of evidence that would prove that he did nothing wrong, she tried to hide that, and it actually came out. I mean, how many prosecutors would go out and hire a self-defense person, have them look at the State Patrol general orders, look at all of the training manuals, and he goes, the officer didn't do anything wrong. She hid that. A bunch of people told her, you shouldn't do this. She did it anyway. Well, she was finally forced into dropping charges against this poor young man who's got a beautiful wife, a little tiny baby, and she's not a prosecutor, she's an activist. And we have nothing but activists in the Democratic Party. And I'm willing to work with anybody. I mean, I don't care, red, blue, whatever. I keep telling everybody this. It should be red, white, and blue. I will shake hands. I will talk to anybody. I will work with any legislator that wants to actually do something for the good of the many. I am tired of the activists coming in and saying, oh, this is all I'm going to focus on. Number one, that's not how you govern. I was elected by people that want me to do things for them, not for some teeny tiny group. That's not how America works. People keep saying that we're a democracy. No, we're a republic, and it works a little bit differently. So, and the one thing that we talk about too is that all you Republicans out there, you need to get up off the couch and go vote, because about 30,000 of you didn't vote last time. And if you don't like what's going on, it's kind of your fault because you didn't bother to get up and vote.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that we all have to look at is that quit bad-mouthing each other. I love Reagan's thing. We do not, what is it, that the whatever...
We agree 80% of the time.
Yeah, it's like the 11th commandment, you don't speak poorly about your other people. So, we as a group need to get together.
Yeah, we gotta figure our stuff out.
Yeah.
And I believe the number was closer to 300,000 Republicans who didn't vote, right, Mike?
300,000?
Yeah, so we've talked about that
A lot.
but it really emphasizes what you're saying about people getting off the couch and voting.
And voting's not even that hard,
It's not.
especially with the new regulations.
Right. In the last election cycle, Jensen lost the race by about 230,000. We lost the House by 4 races, less than 1,500 votes. One Senate race, flipped the Senate by less than about 300, if I recall correctly. But in the state of Minnesota, we know that there was approximately just under 300,000 registered Republicans that never turned up to vote. 300,000. And now that's just registered Republicans. So there's many more of us. That's why I always keep saying that. The 2 greatest lies in Minnesota are that this is a Democrat state and that you can't outvote the Metro. This is not true. We need to get off your butts, go out and vote, and I'm trying not to steal your thunder because you've done an amazing job talking to us, John. Take one person that normally doesn't vote with you. Get them to the polls. We can flip this state, and we can bring some common sense back to politics. And I love what you have to say. I'm more enthused now about hopes for Minnesota, Minneapolis, the Metro, and saying, let's do this. Let's
possible.
Flip this state.
You just got to put in the effort. And I know you mentioned saying, like, it's okay if you move away for your values. No, I want more people to move to Minnesota. We need more conservatives. Move to Minnesota and help us flip the state. Don't run away. We need more people. So don't leave.
If all the conservatives that left would have stayed, we'd probably be winning right now.
Yeah, so like reach out to your friends who left and say, come back. We need you.
How many of you go out for coffee? You meet your little group for coffee all the time. Well, when it's time to vote, take your little group that you met for coffee, all jump into your car, go vote, and then go have coffee.
Sure.
Early voting in Minnesota starts September 20th. And I am telling everybody, go out and vote starting in September. Go in, get your vote in at City Hall. And then, nobody knows who you voted for. They just know that you voted. Yeah. And I go, and that actually helps the candidates, because then if I know that house has already voted, I don't need to go knock on that door because I know you've already
Right.
voted for somebody. And I mean, we all talk about voter fraud and things like that. The area that I'm in, it's a really good area. We've never had any problems. Both Republicans and Democrats talk about how well things work. But if you are concerned about voter fraud, then again, you need to get up off the couch and need to go in and be a judge, an election judge. Work there. I mean, how many of you folks are retired? And one of those jobs is actually a paid job. I mean, you get money to be on an election judge or yeah, yeah. So, there's really no excuse. I mean, if you're one of these that's worried about, if our elections are being up and up, well, then again, you got to get out, you got to get involved and do things. I think I'm a little bit different because my background, my family background, it sounds like a bad song, but my dad loved country and my mom loved classical. And my dad came from a farm, and my mom, came from Minneapolis and was just, raised so much differently than my dad. But because of that, it was really neat because I would go out to Beach, North Dakota, where my uncle had a wheat farm and cows and chickens and barn cats. I mean, I just loved it. The only thing you had to be very careful about is that if you played in the hay bales in the summertime, if you moved a hay bale every now and then, there'd be a rattlesnake that was trying to hide in the hay bale. So, I mean, I was a city kid. I got teased by my cousins and whatever. One year when I was in high school, I actually went out and I helped my uncle harvest. It was my job to sit in the truck. He made so many passes around, and then I would pull up alongside of him, and he would dump into the truck. It was hot, sweaty, really hard work, and it didn't make any difference what my aunt would cook, whether I liked it or not. I inhaled it because I was so hungry, and I miss that. I love Beach. It's the most quiet little town you're ever going to see. Unfortunately, my uncle died and they sold the farm, so my kids didn't have that same experience. But, you talk about where's your food come from?
Yeah.
Well, my aunt said, hey, go out and catch a couple chickens for me. So I went out and I caught a couple of chickens. It was like, boy, that was fun, right? Okay. Well, about 6 hours later, I'm sitting at dinner, and I mean, it's a family dinner. My cousins are there, my mom and dad, my aunt and uncle. We're sitting there, we're having dinner, and I am just inhaling chicken. I am hungry. I love chicken. And my uncle goes, how's your chicken? I go, oh, it's really good. He goes, yeah, those are the ones you caught.
Yeah, did that traumatize you?
And it's like, that was it. I was done. I wasn't hungry anymore.
That's hilarious.
But I am a hunter. One of the things that I did after I retired, everybody said, well, you were just a trooper. Well, after I retired, I actually was a criminal justice chair for a college, and I taught criminal justice classes. I taught some classes on terrorism and world government. I also was able to work security for the Minnesota Twins, which was a lot of fun. And then I still teach defensive driving for the Minnesota Safety Council. But I think one of the fun things that I really did that I enjoyed the most is I became a DNR youth firearms instructor.
Oh.
So, and that's where you teach kids firearm safety, you teach them wilderness skills, and then they get to go out and they go hunting with their moms and dads. I mean, these kids are it's like, I can go with my dad, I can go with my uncle, I can go with mom and dad and all that. They get to carry a gun for the first time.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and Minnesota is founded on this kind of resource, man, like hunting and fishing and trapping. It's a huge thing, and I hate to cut you off, but we kind of got to wrap it up. We could go all night, and which would be fun, but I don't think we can today.
No, this has been a great
It's
conversation.
great.
We're getting a
John,
little bit
thank you
long,
so
but
much for coming on.
Hey,
The pleasure talking to you.
This has been fun.
It's-
Seriously.
But thank you guys so much for
wait,
watching.
before you cut it off here, let me grab this.
Yeah.
Okay, right here. John Nagel, September 20th. If you really want to make a
September
change,
20th.
you know what? Send a message to the legislature. If you're not happy, vote. Send a message to them.
Exactly.
That's right.
And that's the best way to do it, is to vote, because then they're scared for their jobs, and then they have to be more honest and just better.
We want to drive the snakes out of Ireland.
Exactly. I love it. I
think
love it.
that's great.
But thank you guys so much for watching Pints and Politics. I'm Drew. We got John Nagel. We got Mike Weiner.
Shout out again, Minneapolis,
Yep.
Republican Hall.
Exactly where we're at.
And
Yeah.
mplsgop.org. So make sure you look them up, help them out. Great inroads here into Minneapolis with a conservative Republican movement, and we need to take our state back. We need good candidates like John here, starting off, that spearhead.
Mm-hmm.
We can take the state back. Get off the couches, vote.
Yep,
Thanks a lot,
absolutely.
John.
Again, thank you so much for watching Pints and Politics. God bless.
You know that part in The Patriot where Mel Gibson picks up the flag and he runs towards the British, and he turns the poor farmers that are running in the other direction,
Yeah.
and they see him with the flag running towards the British. I'd like to be that guy running towards the British with the flag.